Hello everyone, welcome back to another BAPT conference session. This one with Blair today. Sue's an expert in the field of psychological type with over 20 years experience. She is an international presenter and keynote speaker, author of the Personality Puzzle coaching card resources, which are now used worldwide by coaches, counsellors and therapists. And her session's called Striking a Balance with T and F. Thank you, Sue.
Great, thank you. So thank you for joining us at this session. This is one, I guess people say that everyone's got a book inside of them that they can write, and they will always write a book that they need. And I think I can say the same for this presentation. So this is a presentation I needed to write for me because it was something that I needed to get my head around and needed to understand a whole lot more. And the TNF preference has always been a struggle for me. In fact, the first 2 years of my experience as a type professional, I actually typed as an ESFJ until it dawned on me that I was strikingly not an ESFJ, and I was in fact an ESTJ. So this is something that I've been working on. I would describe myself as a soft ESTJ. I suppose in Dario's subtypes now I can describe myself as a harmonizing ESTJ. So somehow or other I didn't quite fit a lot of the ESTJ descriptions. So this is an awareness that I've come to over the years, and I hope this session will help you understand that thinking and feeling preference that little bit more, but it's certainly a fascinating one for me. So I've got a plan. Of course, I've got a plan. I'm an ESTJ. There's always a plan. So we're going to look at what do the functions look like? What did Jung say about these functions? We're going to look at questions to find balance, and we're going to get into groups so that you can actually look at those questions and see which ones you tend to veer towards. Look at what happens when we fail, and also how to find gold with this. How do you actually combine these functions and get a really positive reaction, a positive response, so that you know that you're combining them well. This is a quote from Jung. One of his intentions was that in life we overcome one-sidedness, and he said opposites always balance one another, a sign of high culture. One-sidedness, though it lends momentum, is a mark of barbarism. Oh my goodness. So although we can go through life with this momentum, it actually turns out to be pretty unsuccessful. So let's see what we need to do. And in fact, this idea of why do we bother looking at this? Why do we bother trying to balance these functions? Really that if we keep pushing the same button, if we keep pushing on that dominant function all of the time, we know that it's going to go horribly wrong. Things are just going to fall around our ears and it's not going to go well at all. Another one of my presentations that I have is called Life in the Octagon. And the octagon in this case is the 8 sides of type. So we all use all of these functions, but with varying amount of energy. So in previous BAPT workshops, I've done the perceiving functions, but for today, we're going to be doing the decision-making functions, thinking and feeling, and in particular, looking at how they work together. So how does extroverted thinking work with introverted feeling? How does introverted thinking work with extroverted feeling? And you'll notice that through the presentation, I often use the TJ, FP, TP, and FJ. I find when I'm working with clients, they haven't quite understood extroverted thinking, introverted thinking, et cetera, et cetera. So I tend to say this is how the type combinations work, the type letter combinations work. So hopefully that works for you as well. So the other idea that we're going to look at is how do you combine these two functions, these two opposing functions, to sort of create this alchemy? How do you make gold out of this? How do you take two simple functions and turn it into something that really works well for you? So I'm going to go through descriptions of each of them. First of all, the extroverted thinking and introverted feeling, or TJ and FP. And then I'll give you some symbols and some visuals to think about, and some questions to help you see which side of these functions you tend to, as I say, you tend to veer towards. So let's start off with TJ, extroverted thinking. This is the art of effectively mobilizing resources towards an optimal result and ensuring it is mutually beneficial, that important part on the end. Other names for this function are systematizing effectiveness, the commander. Timely builders is the one Dario uses, and measuring and constructing for progress. So let me give you a couple of visuals, and then I'll give you a more moving, well, not a moving visual as well, just to add to it. So let's take a look at extroverted thinking. So one of these symbols that I've used, or the metaphors I've used very regularly, is that of the Sudoku puzzle. Now, this is, to me, is extroverted thinking in action. If you look at this, and I'm sure some of you will know how to do Sudoku puzzles, some of you will love them, some of you will hate them. But if you look at that puzzle and you think, where would I put the next three? What would I do? You're going to logically look across the lines, down the lines, along the rows and down the columns, and you'll be able to work out where the next three is. And this is, as I say, extroverted thinking in action, just logically looking at what goes where and placing it. Another idea that you might not have come across is down on the bottom right. And the bottom right is the a salad dressing. If you imagine you're putting a salad dressing together, and you put the oil in and you put the vinegar in and you put everything in and you shake it all up, and then you leave it to rest, what happens? It naturally splits apart, and it's effortless to do that. And that is what extroverted thinking does. We take in information and then it naturally sorts itself out without us having to do any work at all. Again, extroverted thinking in action, that share or splitting of information so that it comes into a logical order, comes to us very, very easily. And it happens to be my dominant function. Let's have a look at what Jung thought about extroverted thinking. And he said the following. Let's look at the positives first, and then a couple of the negatives. He said the thought of the extroverted thinking type is constructive. Yes, we do absolutely construct. Even when it analyzes, it constructs. His ideas maintain a progressive, creative character. His thinking neither stagnates nor is it in the least regressive. And then on the downside, gives the deciding voice, not merely for himself alone, but also for his entourage. Not such a good look at times. And another piece, it's formulaic. All is right that corresponds with this formula, and all is wrong that contradicts it. And everything that is neutral to it is purely accidental. So it's really the idea of defining what the need is, what the structure is. So I hunted all over the place to get this image, and it's one that I really love. And this is the extroverted thinking brain in action. This is what my brain does on a regular basis. It constructs, it makes sure it's got everything in place. It works hard to put the system together and to create something that is effective and workable and manageable. And because I happen to love it and it's my dominant function, I can play it all over again just because I can. So it's just that need to build. Now, of course, I don't go to work every day with a hard hat on. I'm not actually on a construction site, but this is the way that my mind works. So it's how I organize my ideas, how I organize and structure my life, surely, but certainly how I organize my ideas also. Let's take a look at introverted feeling. So I know there will be some of you here who have this as a dominant function. So F and P together, what does that look like? And what symbols and diagrams and visuals can we use to describe that? So introverted feeling, the art of evaluating using personal, firmly held values and beliefs, and listening to others who may differ. So other names for this function are valuing, authenticity, the healer, quiet crusaders, and staying true to who you really are. So a very different function, but they can actually work together. So I've got this tuning fork, and the idea of the tuning fork is what those with introverted feeling have as a dominant function is this need to seek resonance. Does this sound right? Is this okay for me? Does it feel right? Or does it jangle? And they immediately know whether something resonates with them or whether it doesn't. I used to do workshops in groups, and I'd ask them to draw their function and see what symbols that they came up with, or see what metaphors that they had. And I had a group, in fact, there were quite a lot of INFPs in this particular group. And so I divided them into two, and both groups came up with this same idea of this wonderful sword. And this sword isn't something that slashes and kills. This is a sword that protects. They protect with their life. They will put their life on the line for you. It's that sort of that recognizes justice and injustice. And also another symbol for introverted feeling that INFPs, ISFPs have as dominant functions is this idea of the volcano, this beautiful, peaceful geographical symbol here that we've got. And we know that it can look beautiful on the surface, but underneath we know that there's something rumbling, there's something important going on there. And we know that matters to them. That's extraordinarily important. So what's going on underneath those firmly held convictions and beliefs. So what did Jung say about introverted feeling? He said, it is extremely difficult to give an intellectual account of the introverted feeling process. Everything in brackets is mine and not Jung's, but I'm thinking, heavens, if it's difficult for Jung, then it's certainly going to be pretty difficult for us. It demands a more than ordinary descriptive or artistic ability. Still waters run deep. The depth of feeling can only be guessed. So for those of us who don't have this as a function in our 4-letter code, we really kind of don't know the half of it, really. And on the negative side, it assumes an air of profound indifference as a defense, or the mysterious power of intensive feeling turns into a banal and arrogant desire to dominate. My goodness. And another image that I've got for introverted feeling is this idea of tuning into the radio station, just seeing if you can get just the perfect place for it to sound right, to get that sort of resonance, to make sure that you're actually on the station. And then also to sort of shift to another station. You're never quite happy with one. You've got to sort of try and find another one and see where the perfect station is. Where is it going to sound absolutely right to me? Also, there's this idea of that sort of beating heart. That last time I looked, my heart was on the inside. It's the inside of you. It's something that just keeps going, that just goes, why is this important? Is this worthwhile? Is this something that I should be doing with my life? And what can I live with? What is so important to me that I need to have this feeling of resonance and something that I can live with. So I've got some questions for you, and what I would like you to do is read through the questions in your groups. Some of them are the extroverted thinking questions, and some of them on the right-hand side are the introverted feeling questions. If you don't have a copy of the handout, then please just take a photo of this screen so that you can get into your groups to discuss these. And what I would like you to do is to consider how or if you use each of these functions. So even if you don't have this in your type code, you will still be using extroverted thinking and introverted feeling, but you might have a lesser energy for it. So the questions I'd like you to consider are, do you tend to ask the questions on one side more than the other? Has this ever been problematic? And how can you strike the balance? How can you use both in your work or in your home life? So, Richard, if you could get us into the groups. Does anybody want me to go to the previous slide again? So what I also want to sort of look at is how you can use these two things together. You can have this sort of building system, this structure that you're trying to build, but have this sort of heart that's within it. And having one with the other is so important. And having only one and not have the other is really detrimental. And we need to sort of share those two things so that we aren't, as Jung says, barbaric. We aren't as one-sided as we might be otherwise. And so when you're actually combining extroverted thinking with introverted feeling, if you have extroverted thinking as a dominant function or auxiliary function, how are you going to combine introverted feeling to get that goal, to get that, really that transcendental or transcendent function? And really it's an ability to create structure and efficiency whilst also seeking affirmation from one's conscience to ensure the work is congruent with one's personal values. So when you combine action with compassion, then you have that beautiful combination that you can create something so much better with. And also, if you have introverted feeling, or when you're using introverted feeling and you also need to access extroverted thinking, how are those two going to combine? And that's an ability to be firmly committed to one's personal values, whilst also building a life that takes necessary action to reach fulfillment. So from this point of view, myself as somebody as an ESTJ preference, I need to tune in to introverted feeling, to know that what I'm doing so busily out there, what I'm building actually matters, and it's real and it's important to me. And that informs the way I structure my life and the way I use that extroverted thinking dominant function of mine. Also, if you have a preference for introverted feeling, then if you are not putting that knowledge, that source, that value out into the world and actually doing something with it, it doesn't actually get to be of practical use. So you need to be able to sort of push yourself. Yes, it takes a huge amount of energy for somebody, for example, with INFP or ISFP preferences to actually get out into the world and sort of put your stuff out there and make it available to others and build something. But it is something that is so worth doing. One of the great good fortunes that I have in my life is that I have a twin sister. Her name is Annette, Nettie as I call her, and she happens to have INFP preferences. So I was born and raised with this lovely woman by my side, and we complement each other in so many ways. I can't say that it was a wonderful thing from the get-go. Certainly our teenage years had some difficulties, but if you can find somebody who is your opposite, who you can go to, who you can rely on, who you can talk to, and who you can use as a resource, as somebody who uses that opposite function, then you are certainly blessed in life, I believe. I wonder if anyone has any thoughts or comments on that, on the use of these two functions in combination: extroverted thinking with introverted feeling, and then introverted feeling with extroverted thinking. Any thoughts on that?
At work, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, I can.
Okay. The ESTJ science teacher, who had no interest at all in type, she was the union rep, and I found that she and I had a lot of rapport because she was very interested in values, in the sense of what was right for the workers, and she always had strong opinions, and we could talk more than I could talk with another staff member, with intensity about the things that mattered. And I always felt there was really a great synchronicity there between myself and an ESTJ, which quite amazed me. Whether she felt the same, I don't know, because she wasn't thinking that way, but we certainly had a very strong rapport because of that.
Great. And also, obviously, in typological terms, we're not quite as opposite as we think we are. We're just switching around the dominant function and the inferior function. So it's extroverted thinking dominant and introverted feeling inferior for me. And for you, Valerie, it's introverted feeling dominant and extroverted thinking as the inferior function. So not so different after all in some respects.
Not at all, no.
Great. I'll just move on to extroverted feeling and introverted thinking and give you some visuals for those two. Hopefully you can all find an opposite in your life who can give you as much joy as my sister has given me. So let's take a look at introverted thinking, T and P together, and extroverted feeling, the F and the J. So let's take a look at those. So introverted thinking, the art of using logical reasoning to define and refine the process and use that analysis wisely, not to just think about it, but actually use it as well. Other names for the function: analyzing accuracy, skillful sleuths, the analyst, and gaining leverage using a framework. So the images that I used to use, first of all, was this marble run. If you imagine the marble in this case is an idea, it's a thought, and you pop the marble run in the top, and then it kind of tracks round and finds different routes and gets down to the bottom. And then what you do with the marble when it gets down to the bottom is you just pick it up and put it in again. So you've got more and more ideas that track round and track round. So it's very different to extroverted thinking, which actually has to accomplish something and do something and structure something externally. This is just something that asks the questions. And so it's like having this funnel of questions. And what comes out of the funnel is just a whole lot more questions. And what those with introverted thinking like to do is answer a question with a question. So they've just got more and more questions going round. Introverted thinking on a great day is just taking all of this information and keep on processing and processing to refine and define. And so what did Jung say about introverted thinking? On the upside, introverted thinking is decisively influenced by ideas. The priority of the thinking, intensity is his or her aim. The subjective force of conviction inherent in such an idea is usually very great. It formulates questions and creates theories. It opens up prospects and yields insight. But in the presence of facts, it exhibits a reserved demeanor. And then on the downside, in the pursuit of his or her ideas, he or she is generally stubborn, headstrong, and quite unamenable to influence. In thinking out his or her problems to the utmost of his ability, he also overcomplicates them and constantly becomes entangled in every possible scruple. And this is the bit that I like most of all. Cogito ergo cogito. I think, therefore I think. I happen to have 3 siblings who are INTPs. My father is an ISTP. I know this function really quite spectacularly well. As I said, cogito ergo cogito gave me a huge smile, I can assure you. And this is the image that I have for it. Just these questions. What else can we ask? How is that going to work? Ooh. Bingo. What's the big question? Oh my goodness. And then that can be paired up with extroverted feeling. So again, when I was doing workshops and asking people to draw their own function, and I asked all of the people with extroverted feeling, who are usually in a tight conference, there was quite a few of them, what symbolized for them their function, they only ever drew this. They didn't, there were no groups that drew anything other than this holding hands, this being together, this sort of social responsibility. So extroverted feeling, the art of offering care and support to create harmonious relationships, and pay attention to self-care if you're using it well. So other names for this function: harmonizing, the unifier, harmony, friendly hosts, building trust through giving relationships. So we can, I'm sure this is a function that we all know well. But what did Jung have to say about it? And actually, Jung wasn't particularly positive about this function. So let me read you what he had to say. Insofar as feeling is incontestably a more obvious peculiarity of feminine psychology and thinking, most pronounced feeling types are also to be found among women. That's still statistically correct, I believe. The personality appears to be adjusted in relation to objective conditions. One can feel correctly, however, only when feeling is disturbed by nothing else, but nothing disturbs feeling so much as thinking. On the downside, as far as feeling permits, she or he can think very well, but every conclusion, however logical, that might lead to a disturbance of feeling is rejected from the outset. And when exaggerated, feeling loses its personal character. It almost seems as though the personality were wholly dissolved in the feeling of the moment. Apparently, he or she is this one moment and something completely different the next. So I found this image through Canva. I don't know if anybody else uses Canva. It's something I go to. They are all women who are holding hands here. That's not intentional. I would very happily have some males in there as well. But that idea of uniting together, holding hands, supporting, offering service and support is extremely important to those who have extroverted feeling. But I felt that this image didn't quite put across the fact that it changes. And I think this shifting of feeling that goes on with people with this preference I find it something that I find difficult with those who have extroverted feeling is that you're never too sure exactly where you stand on what they're thinking about something at any given moment. And so I sort of found this image, which just sort of indicated to me how it shifts. It doesn't, the emotions don't stay the same. They shift and they move and they differ. They take into the context of the relationships that are around them, and it just sort of moves in this circuitous way. So I'd like you to do the same as we did previously with the other set of questions. The introverted thinking questions on the left and the extroverted feeling questions on the right. So hopefully you can grab a picture of those or have the handout ready for you. So I'll let you do that. And we'll just do the same again. So what I would like you to do is consider how or if you use each of those functions. Again, for those of you who are FJs or TPs, this will be a lot easier for you to do this one. So do you tend to ask the questions on one side more than the other? Has this ever been problematic, the fact that you might be missing out on the other side? Or for those who are TJs and FPs, think about it from your own perspective. And how might you be able to integrate them? How might you be able to strike a balance at work or in home life? So Richard, if you wouldn't mind putting us into groups again, and we can have another 8 minutes, that would be good. Great. Let's take a look at what it means when you've actually got the two things working in combination. So you've got that support, but you've also got that analytic questioning going on at the same time. And using them in conjunction is when you get that goal, because we need to have one with the other. If you're only using one without the other, then it can lead to some faulty thinking or barbarism, as Jung might has put it obviously. So when you have introverted thinking in combination with extroverted feeling, it's an ability to undertake thorough analysis whilst also offering support and ensuring the well-being of those around me. So it's analysis with care. And what I've come to learn about certainly the NTPs in my life is that they desperately care about a very small group of people that they've got around them. And if you are within that circle of people that they care about, there is nothing that they wouldn't do for you. So it is incorrect to think that those with introverted thinking don't have that capacity. It is very frequently there, but it often has a boundary around it. And then with extroverted feeling, when you're using it with introverted thinking, it's an ability to offer support and care whilst also objectively questioning personal endeavors to validate accuracy and need. So it's care with analysis. So using the two in combination is going to be successful. That's where you have your gold. So we've got TJ working with P, and then we've got the FJ working with TP, extroverted thinking and introverted feeling, and extroverted feeling with introverted thinking. How can you put those two things together in your world to create something that's going to set you up to succeed rather than set you up to fail? Finally, it's not our job to make all functions equal. It is our job to create the space to own what we do naturally and to open up to develop other aspects of ourselves. Be conscious, become aware, and be self-directed. So yes, it's a tightrope walk, as we were saying, Shirley, from time to time. It does feel a little bit scary up there. Hopefully we will find some harmony in the balance, and good luck. Hopefully also we can have some fun with this along the way. So thank you very much for attending, and I look forward to having any questions you might have. If anybody wants to stay on for a few minutes, we can discuss this a bit further, but thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much.
That's great.
Thank you.